Hey guys, it's Jan, also known as Zen Bluster. I have partnered with DXN Provisions, Mass Damper, and Black Fabrica to bring you guys a new build series starting with a Super 2 bumperless and body damper setup. Many of the parts are from DXN Provisions. Mass Damper will be painting and sticker tuning the body, and Black Fabrica accessories were used for this build. Part 1 will show the parts needed, chassis and front bumper cutting. So we're going to start with the Mini 4-wheel drive Panda Racer 2. We need these for the terminals and for the black PC ABS chassis that is included with the kit. Item number 18092. I'm using the red A parts from the Vanguard Sonic Premium. It's up to you what color combination you want to use. I chose the red because I like it. Next is the fluorine coated gear shaft 15400 for the counter gears. Next is the purple pinion 94577 for the motor. These are smooth. Next is 15438, the easy locking gear cover, makes it easier for tuning. This is 15462, carbon reinforced crown gears. These last a lot longer than the pink ones. And the 3.721 gear set 15434. Next is 15205. We're going to be using the green gears from these set, and then the shaft from 15234. It'll be better for transmission. Next is 94389. You're going to need 3 sets of them. 4 for the drive shafts and 1 for the counter gear. Next is 15510, the countersunk screw set. Just get 2 for in case you need more. And 15454. You only really need 1 set for this build. This is 2 sets of 15473 aluminum spacer set. 15297, the hollow stainless steel shafts in case one of them is bent, and a set of Mad Tang tires. These are the combination of the super hard and low friction tire set, good for speed and for cornering as well. Item number 95237, the front rollers. And these are going to be the stabilizers, 94932 for the front. And these are the 5 spoke rollers, 95396. These are going to be on the top of the back. And 95326, 19 millimeter 3 spoke rollers. Next is item number 15497. It's going to be used in a couple of different spots for the body damper frame and for the front bumper support. And these, you're going to need 2 of them actually, 15495. These are going to be used for the body damper frame and also for the front roller mounts. Item number 15451 and 15498. These are going to be for the rear brakes. We're going to be using 15451 as a guide to be able to cut the carbon brake piece on the back. Item numbers 95433, that's going to be for the roller mount at the rear, and the 15472 is going to be for the rear underguard. This is going to be for the body damper frame and body damper catch, 2 of 95455. That's going to be for the cutting of the frame at the center, and then this is going to be for the part where you're going to need to mount the side catch for the dampers. Next is the side mass damper set. You need 2, 15459. You really only need the dampers from this part. Next is 95260, the rear multi-roller settings for the brake mount and roller. 15518, that's going to be used for the front bumper. there's a lot of room to be able to put bricks, so I like to use this for this build. And 5 sets of 15493. This is about the right amount that you're gonna need, sometimes more. And Hyper Dash 3, 15477, and then the aluminum motor support. What number is it again? 95352. Last but not least is going to be the Avante Mark II body, item number 15369. I just really love the design on this body. Alright, so now we gotta go check out the Super 2 chassis. Make sure it doesn't have a twist. The easiest way to tell is if you compare the sidewalls where the battery is to make sure that they're uniform. If they're not uniform, then your chassis is gonna have a twist, and this one seems like it's in good shape. And we're gonna take out the terminals too. We need that, and the eyelets for the bushings. We're not sure if we're gonna need them yet, but we're gonna go ahead and set that aside. And next up, we're going to be organizing our parts on the Black Fabrica organizer right there. And the Black Fabrica knife is going to be pretty handy for this build as well, especially when you're working with a lot of plastic for the chassis. Yeah, having this was actually quite good when I was building the Avante RC and the RC10 from Team Associated. Organizing all those little parts was actually quite good for me. And now we're going to be mounting the Super 2 chassis on the mount for the MF70, and we're going to be using the 1.8mm drill bit to drill out those 2 holes for the front of the chassis. You don't want to use a bit that's bigger. If you do, you're basically going to prevent the screws from grabbing that after on. And then here, so you can see the holes are now drilled through, and they're pretty good. Next is we're gonna go ahead and start mounting the chassis on the MF70 Super 2 mount. I got this mount from an Instagram user called Ferrimiche. I don't exactly know how to pronounce it correctly, but this is one of the most convenient ways to actually use the MF70. You use a mount, screw it into the posts, and then the posts actually get mounted onto the MF70 table for the Proxon. And if you guys don't have the mill, you can at least kind of do it with the rotary tool, but it's definitely not going to be as easy on some of the cuts that I'm showing you here. So at some point, if you're actually pretty serious into mini 4-wheel drive racing, I suggest you get an MF70. This is going to make life a lot easier for you. So here we can see that the mount is now mounted onto the Super 2 chassis at the front, and we're going to do the same thing in the back. And the front is screwed in with a 20mm screw, I think, if I recall correctly, and then the back ones are mounted on a 15mm screw, and you got to use washers to make sure that they're flush on the mount as well. And always wear eye protection when you're building, especially when you're gonna go cut. We're gonna go cut the extra bits of the bumper, because we don't really need those sides, and they're gonna be using the Proxon rotary tool right here, and we're just gonna go ahead and cut that off. Alright, so we've cut that off. We're just gonna go and make sure everything's still set. We're gonna go cut off those supports right there. We're just gonna make the chassis a little bit lighter and give it a little bit more flex. Just having a little bit more flex is actually not too bad, especially for Super 2. It's kind of stiff on its own. And here we're about to start using the mill. This is a Kyocera end mill bit. 1/16 flute. That's a double flute, a dual flute, a 2 flute technically, and the shank is 1/8 of an inch. And we're gonna go ahead and mount that on the MF17 mill. And using that bit is basically like a good cutter, and we're going to be cutting off those supports near that motor, and then of course near that battery that I showed earlier. So we're gonna go ahead and zoom in and take a closer look at what's going on here. Yeah, you gotta go ahead and screw it down, and then you don't want to over tighten it, because if you do, you risk actually breaking the plastic supports that are mounting onto the table directly, and you don't want to do that. Alright, so here you go. We're going through them one post at a time, bit by bit, right there. And then we're going to go ahead and remove some of the extra plastic that had been cut off. Just vacuum that out. And then we're cutting off each post bit by bit. There you go. You know, this is the beauty of having the mill, and makes cuts like this quite easy. If you were to do it with you know, a side cutter, what you risk doing is actually cracking the plastic around it. If you use the mill, it just takes the plastic off and doesn't leave any marks or any fractures on the plastic, making it weaker. It keeps the plastic that was there originally around that piece that you're cutting off alone. It doesn't touch it and doesn't make it warp. If you use the side cutters, you just end up warping it. So I mean, if you're okay with warping the plastic and you know, possibly introducing like a fracture, a very small fracture that most of the time you're not going to be able to see it. It's just going to get worse over time. That's why I prefer using the mill. And using the mill often when you're making cuts, it's just going to be a lot safer. Because if you look at this, I mean, it's just making a pass. You know, I have my eye protection. My hands are relatively close to the mill, but like they're not anywhere near the bit, basically. And that makes it a lot safer for you when you're making cuts. So here you go. We're cutting out that last post on near that battery side. I considered making the other slots over there a little bit bigger, but I didn't want to make it too soft. And here we're gonna go clean up the cuts earlier that we did for the Proxxon rotary tool. I'm just gonna make it a little bit more uniform. And then there you go. Just a little bit off. Just making it a little bit more uniform when we're cutting. Yeah, between each step I kind of have to vacuum out the remaining pieces. So over here we're readjusting the position of it so that I have a lot more control as to where I'm putting the bumper, because we need to go cut the front bumper off. As you can see, I left it earlier. I only cut the sides, and so now we're gonna go ahead and do like a straight cut from one side of the chassis to the other side, and that's going to allow us to start putting the roller mounts on the bumper that we picked for the front of this car. So we're going through it slowly. You don't want to go too fast. You might risk melting the plastic. And the RPM that I'm using is actually fairly high. I think I have it set at around, hold on a second, let's take a look. Around 18,000 RPM on the mill. So it's fairly quick, not maximum. You don't need to go super fast. There you go. We've cut that, and ended up cutting it off on the other side with the God hand cutter. Makes it easier. So you can see the cuts are pretty smooth. And if you need to hit it with a file, go ahead and do that, but go slowly so that you don't cut too much off. And here you go. You can see the way that it was cut. It was very smooth and it's very uniform. It's very even. Now we're going to go ahead and start working on the bumper. We need to be able to fit it to make sure that it's sitting in the right spot, because you don't want the bumper to be flexing too much against the roller mounts, because if it does, it kind of introduces another failure point. And just showing you the back parts that we're going to be using for the rear brakes and for the rear roller mounts. So we need to go figure out the total length of the car just to make sure that it fits the dimension box. And yes, it still fits properly and it's fine this way. So the rear multi-roller settings tape plus the AR wide plate. Now, as you can see, this is the position that I chose, and now choosing this position has an issue where the actual switch to turn it on is not going to be fairly uniform. You need to cut some of the bumper off. There you go. As you can see, you need to cut some of it off because of the position of the switch so that it can lie flush up against the chassis from underneath. So we're going to go ahead and mount it again on the MF70, and then I'll show you guys a slow cut right there. So very good. It's very easy. This is one of the things you can just make some small cuts, and with the way that the vise works is that it since it's flat, I could just push the piece flat against it, pressing it down, and since it's straight, it makes it easy for me to just cut off the excess. And then we're gonna go switch bits into a much bigger bit so that I can take off a lot more material at the same time. So we're going with a 1/8 size end mill bit. This one is 4 flute, another Kyocera bit, pretty good. And very accurate too. These are carbide bits and they last a decent amount of time as long as you don't abuse them. Use them on some what do you call it, a really bad position or something like that, because misusing the bit can of course shorten its life, makes it harder to go against certain materials. And carbon is actually pretty tough to cut through, but since it's carbide, it can do it with not too many issues. As long as you don't overstress the bit, it won't really have any issues. Alright, so as you can see, that was a fairly easy cut. There you go. Now we've already cut that slot out for the switch, and it's going to fit just nicely. Alright, so now that we've done that, we're going to go cut the front bumper off a little bit more. Because of the position of the rollers are going to be a little bit further back. They need to be, the front bumper needs to be trimmed a little bit more in order for us to be able to see the roller mount flush up against the chassis. Because if you don't put it flush up against the chassis, it's going to have a weird flex. The flex is going to be causing more issues. So that front bumper roller mount needs to be touching, it needs to be flat all the way from one side to the other so that it can be supported by the chassis itself. If there's a gap in between the front roller mount and the chassis, what happens is that the bumper is going to take more force. Basically, it becomes the holes, the 2 screw points are becoming the failure points. And once that starts to flex, the holes will start to get weaker, and then the whole front of the chassis gets weaker and weaker slowly. Whereas if it's flush up against the bumper and the chassis, they're both supporting each other, it's a lot stronger and it's a lot less likely to wiggle out and have the holes change in terms of shape. Alright, so we've trimmed that up quite a bit, and there you go. Now the bumper is flush up against the chassis. In addition, for the front roller mounts are also flush up against the front bumper as well. So there you go. Quite good in terms of cut. And the next thing that we have to worry about is the position of the wheels, because that front roller mount is very far, very deep. It's actually a little bit further in than the way I used to build my Super 2s. The way that I used to build my Super 2s, it's a little bit further forward, and the front mount's over here now a little bit further back. And that allows the car to jump a little bit deeper. So now we're going to go ahead and check the shafts for the front. We need to mount the wheels to see where the position is, just to make sure that there's enough room for the rollers to actually clear and not touch the wheel while it's actually, moving. Because, when rollers touch the wheels, it basically acts like a brake. And normally you don't want to do that. Okay, so yeah, that shaft checker that I was using specifically for the 72mm hollows, and that allows me to check and make sure that the shaft is straight. And we're gonna mount it on the front wheels, and we're gonna mount the front wheels on the chassis. And right now I also have the AO620s mounted on their positions on the front as well, and we're gonna thread the shaft through that wheel, and then we're gonna position it to see where the roller is at this point. And one of the fun things about the wheel installer is that it's pretty beefy, so you could actually use it as a small hammer. So that's what I was doing just then. And we're gonna thread it through the inner hole. As you can see, there's a hole on that side that allows you to push not just the wheel but just the shaft if you need to. So I'm pushing the shaft into the wheel right there, and doing this makes it so that you're making sure that you do not bend the shaft while you're installing it. Okay, so we're gonna go check it to see where the roller position is, and this is the point where we're checking it again, and yes, the position is still a little bit too wide for the wheel, so it's still gonna touch the rollers. So I still wanted to go keep the 90mm rollers for the front, so what I did was I decided to go and make some changes onto the width of the wheels. So as you can see, the wheels are spinning quite freely, even though those aren't the AO620s that I'm going to be using. Those are old. I'm going to be using new 620s for this build, which is actually going to be shown in the next video. The next video is going to be us working on the transmission. Alright, so what I've decided to do with the wheel is to make the offset a little bit more narrow. That allows us to have more room and the front bumper for the 19mm HG rollers to clear. So this is the first trim. Ended up milling it down to an additional 1mm on the clearance basically. So the left and right wheel are both going to be closer by 1mm, and I just wanted to do a slow check just to make sure that the wheels are going to go clear slowly bit by bit. So the first trim is 1mm, and I checked the size and it still wasn't narrow enough. So as you can see over here, this is the first trim right there. So you can see the hub is a little bit smaller. Alright, so here we are checking the wheels, putting them on, checking the rollers, and yes, the rollers are still not going to fit. So I did another depth trim for the hub. Now they're 1.8mm in addition to that, so a total of 2.8mm trim on the hub. Now we're gonna go and check the fit of the 19mm HG rollers just to make sure that it's all in the right position. I was already fairly confident at this point that it was gonna fit fine, and we're gonna lay it flat just to see the position of the rollers. And here you go, guys. The position is very close, but it's not gonna touch. So this front bumper is a solid front bumper. It's not sliding because we're just gonna build a basic bumperless setup right here, no sliding. If you wanted to do a sliding damper at the front for the rollers, we needed to use a different bumper and it needed to be wider. This is just a different position, because if we don't need to have it sliding, then we could push it very close to the front wheel for a lot better cornering, and you can jump a little bit deeper into the corner too. So here you go. All right, so there you have it for this first video of the series in partnership with DXN, Mass Damper, and Black Fabrica. Wait until the next video where we're going to be working on the transmission of the car. And yeah, if you'd like to see more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share, and thanks for watching. Go race.